The Long Road to True Happiness by WierdRandomTina. Chapter 33. Major Changes, Part 1. Branch was taking a peaceful stroll along the southern, quiet outskirts of the village, passing by a small, unoccupied playground. He had finished his usual morning routine, built a new support beam for one of his bunker's emergency tunnels, and tended to his expanded gardens. Birds chirped high overhead as a cool breeze rustled through the conifer trees. Some trolls' laughter could be heard in the distance. A different kind of bird began to join in the nice chirping melody. Branch! Suddenly, a nearby screech nearly scared the hair off of him, to the point where he visibly jumped. Apparently the playground was not unoccupied because Poppy appeared from behind it, holding a scrapbook. Her high volume initially made Branch fear that something had gone seriously wrong. However, that theory was quickly tossed aside when he saw a massive smile plastered across her pink face. After hastily stuffing the scrapbook into her hair, Poppy propelled herself in his direction at full speed. She was coming at him like a pink train, and before he had a chance to react in any way, she literally tackled him with a hug. He landed rather roughly on the ground, with her mostly on top of him. Her arms were locked around his torso, her face was pressing into his chest, and she was laughing like a maniac. What the? Branch really didn't know what to make of this. What in hell's name? It was like her giddiness had quadrupled, which should be an unattainable amount of joy. Why, dare I even ask? I'm so excited, Branch! I'm so flipping excited! Gee, I never would have guessed that. Poppy, did you eat a bucket of sugar this morning? What? No! Poppy tilted her head to look up at him, the smile unwavering. I mean, I could. I did that once years ago. But I didn't today. I hair swear. I only had one apple fritter and a mini cupcake. Okay, so what's all this about, then? Poppy released him enough to prop herself up onto her elbow. She was still kind of leaning against his side, so he could feel her body trembling. Okay, here we go. Are you ready to hear this? I think so. He hoped so, anyway. Poppy stifled a squeal, took a very deep breath, and then the explanation spewed out. Dad called me into his pod this morning because he said he had a very special belated birthday gift for me. So of course I asked him what it was. And he said his gift to me is that he's going to name me Queen! Branch blinked a few times to let her run-on sentence sink in. All right, that would certainly justify such hyper-happiness. He broke into a smile. Really? That's great news. When? 3 days from now, Wednesday afternoon. I'm super excited. Despite those words, her smile weakened slightly. But to tell you the truth, Branch, there's also a part of me that's kind of nervous. I mean, I've been preparing for this day since I was a little trolling, and I figured it was coming soon. But I'm still like, holy sprinkles, this is really happening! And I've been doing a ton of stuff around the village as princess for 4 whole years now, so it's not like I don't know what I'm doing. But now I'm going to have the official title. I'm going to be completely in charge of everything. Poppy's hand returned to Branch's chest as her head lightly rested on his shoulder. Her voice grew a bit quieter as she added, My dad was such a noble king. I mean, he saved our entire society from the Bergens, for crying out loud. And each royal before him had so many riveting stories in their name, of all their grand accomplishments. Being a good queen is the most important thing in the world to me. I just hope I can meet all the high expectations. Of course you can, Poppy. And I know you will. Branch placed his hand over hers, and she looked back up at him. You're already a great princess. A natural leader, adored by everyone, and fully dedicated to helping others. Your time management skills are highly impressive. You're very hardworking and uniquely creative. Your endless positivity can brighten anyone's day, even mine. Poppy smiled wider at that little extra point. Giving her hand a little squeeze, Branch finished. You're going to be a great queen. Such straightforward encouragement was exactly what she needed to hear. To show her gratitude, Poppy resumed snuggling up against him. Branch was the only one she could voice those mild concerns to. And her dad, but she hadn't spoken to him yet. She wanted to, but was unsure if that kind of confession would make her sound feeble, naive, or unready for such responsibility. Then again, King Peppy was always assuring her that there was no shame in admitting fear. Maybe he had similar concerns when he faced his own coronation. Branch had closed his eyes, enjoying this random little semi-romantic moment with the pretty pink girl in his dreams. After a minute or two, he felt her shifting. He opened his eyes to find her sitting up, but her radiant smile was no longer there. Now she was looking down at him with an anxious gleam in her eyes. With a mix of curiosity and concern, he sat up too. Poppy's gaze wandered to the grass beside him, and she confessed, "Branch, I feel really bad for asking this of you, but I would really love for you to be there, at my coronation. I know it's a huge party, and I know you already attended a huge party for me very recently. But if you could even just hang around the general area, or show up for part of the ceremony, or something." Branch looked shocked by the request, but not for the reason she would have suspected.
"Poppy, of course I'll come. I'm not going to miss your coronation."
"Really? Are you sure?"
"Yes, I'm sure. Besides, I survived your birthday party. What's one more?"
"So, you'll come? For the whole thing?"
"Well, whole thing may be stretching it a tad. You know how I am. Partially participating, resting every now and then. The usual."
"Yes, of course. That is the way you are. I know that. And I love the way you are."
"Thanks. But I promise I'll stay for as long as I can."
"I appreciate that so much, Branch." Her reserved companion gladly accepted invitations was still foreign to Poppy, so she began to ramble. "I'm not trying to be pushy. I mean, I guess I kind of am, but I really don't want to pressure you. I said I wouldn't do that."
"Poppy, you're not being pushy. Not in the least."
"Okay, good. But still, only if you're sure. You had fun at my birthday party, but another one is too much. I get it."
"Poppy!"
Branch grabbed her shoulders, gently but enough to get her attention.
"I want to be there, and I'm going to be there."
The next thing Branch knew, he was tackled back into the grass. Over the next 3 days, the entire village participated in another frantic party prep. The main mushroom stage, in the centre of the village near Poppy's pod, needed to be transformed into a proper stage for the ceremony. An elaborate walkway, lined with formal bouquets of both flowers and balloons, led up to said stage. A dozen long and heavily decorated tables were set up on either side of the pathway, in preparation for the 3-course meal followed by the dessert, involving dozens of different cakes. Before the beginning of the walkway was a large open area reserved for the dance floor. Around the stage, an intricate fireworks system was set up. Traditional coronation decor was neatly arranged as far as the eye could see, including banners along the rounded edges of the mushroom. Strings of large lights above the stage, homemade wreaths on backs of chairs, and nice abstract statues surrounding the dance area. Even Branch assisted with bits of the preparations, helping to move the tables and hang the lights, making sure the fireworks were safe, and even made 2 small blue flower-themed wreaths. Tuesday morning, Branch was working on said wreaths when he heard a knock on his hatch door. It was a plain knock, so unlikely to be Poppy. Perhaps it was Suki again, or Biggie. He had stopped by once in a while just to say hi. As Branch ascended the elevator, he could have sworn that knock had sounded like it had an echo. That was because it had been knocked 2 times at the same time. He opened the door to find the 2 new guests.
"Oh, good morning, Saturn, Chenille. What brings you 2 all the way out here?"
"So glad you asked," Chenille exclaimed. It was Saturn who answered bluntly. "We need you to stop by our pod later today."
Okay, sure. What time?"
"Any time after 1 is good," Chenille vaguely answered. Saturn gave Branch a very stern look. "Don't forget." Branch glanced back and forth between the girls. Neither seemed like they were going to offer any further info, but he attempted anyway.
May I ask what this is about?
You'll find out later, was all the pink twins' response. The blue twins, however, was a bit different. We have something super cool for you. Saturn gave her sister an exasperated glare, and Chenille immediately defended herself. What? I didn't give him any details. Don't give me that look. Before the twins could start a full-blown argument, Branch emphasized, I'll be there sometime between 1:30 and 2. I promise I will not forget. Wednesday arrived very quickly, and went by even faster. So much went on at the party that most of it was just a blur to Branch. He wouldn't say that it was overwhelming, just a lot to take in for someone who was still classified as an introvert. The friendly chaos began before he had even taken 2 steps into the party, when he was greeted by every troll in the vicinity. Enthusiastic hellos coming from every direction, accompanied by many "Glad to see you, welcome to the party," and/or "Nice outfit" comments, plus some asking "How are you?" and/or initiating some small talk. Branch tried his very best to respond to every one of them, but it was difficult to keep up since 90% of the time there were at least 2 trolls talking at him at once, and each would come and go in the blink of an eye, then just as quickly be replaced by another. By the time the wave of welcoming subsided, he had grown a bit dizzy from his focus darting all over the place. He chuckled to himself.
I've witnessed Poppy thoroughly greet 24 trolls in less than half a minute, without stuttering or skipping a beat in any way. Nearly all trolls are extremely friendly, but her level of sociability is a true rare talent.
Branch glanced over by the far west table and smiled.
Speaking of Poppy.
There she was, demonstrating his point by cheerfully welcoming a large group of trolls. Branch would never, not even in a million years, tire of seeing her shining smile. He could never understand how one individual could possess such ardent, unfaltering positivity. He would forever be amazed by the way her eyes lit up like fuchsia fireflies whenever she looked at him, just like they were at that moment when she finally spotted him. Poppy greeted the final troll, then hurried over to Branch. Now his head was spinning for a different reason. Saying that she looked angelic would be an understatement. She was wearing a sky blue ball gown, dotted with lighter blue flowers. She was also wearing the rose necklace, the first time she had worn it since he'd gave it to her. Poppy was petrified to break it or lose it, so she vowed to only wear it during formal occasions, or in otherwise low-risk settings. As she quickly approached him, Branch opened his arms wide. The beautiful pink troll jumped into them, and he embraced her tightly. Maybe no one was watching them. Maybe all eyes were on them. Branch didn't check, nor did he care. He still couldn't believe he was ever hesitant to hug her. Having Poppy in his arms was the most wonderful thing in the world. He held her for a few lingering seconds, determined to gradually make up for the affection he had missed out on. Once the tender hug ended, Poppy stepped back to get a proper look at Branch. His mauve vest with a little sprig of 3 maroon berries to the left, and nice silk violet shorts. Well, looks like Saturn and Chenille did it again. Geez, I'm going to have to make them a thank you scrapbook at this rate. Poppy's knees felt weak again, and her heart skipped another beat. But at least when he asked her what she thought of it, she was able to take a breath and give an answer. I think that purple is a great colour on you.
Thanks, Saturn and Chenille said it would be. I was sceptical when I first saw it, but I knew better than to argue with them. And it turned out they were right.
Branch glanced down at his outfit, slightly adjusted the vest, then continued.
I still prefer earth tones on a regular basis, but a touch of colour for special occasions is a nice change.
Poppy placed her hand on his shoulder, investigating the soft fabric of the vest. Did you ask them to make this for you?
Not this time. I was planning on wearing the autumn clothes again, but according to the twins, it's a massive, major fashion faux pas to wear the same formal outfit for 2 consecutive parties. So, here I am.
Poppy smiled wider. Yes, you are here, she said, gently wrapping her arms around him. Thank you again, Branch. After giving him an extra squeeze, she pulled away, grabbing both of his pale turquoise hands, and said excitedly, All righty, first things first. Snack table. Looks like half the village is over there, so we better get some food while we still can. You ready, Branchy?
Yeah, I'm ready to... Branch paused, now sparking at her. Did you just call me Branchy?
Poppy nodded vigorously, like a little pink bobblehead.
Branch lowered his head and shook it with a warm-hearted snicker, accepting his fate as she happily dragged him along over to the snack table.
For nearly another hour, until around 3:30, trolls continued to mingle and enjoy the munchies. Then chatter decreased significantly, and everyone gradually gathered up in the open grassy area between the ends of the tables and the stage. The princess's closest companions were nearest to the stage. Before Poppy took her place at the beginning of the pathway, they wished her luck. The entire snack pack, Branch included, surrounded her with an encouraging group hug. The second the clock hit 4, King Peppy was standing at the center of the stage, ready and signaling for the ceremony to begin. Poppy's giddy energy was locked away as she elegantly strolled down the decorated walkway in her stunning blue ball gown. She slowly walked past the lines of tables, then passed by all her loyal people as they watched her with pure admiration, then reached the end of the path and made her way up the stage to stand with her father. Complete silence fell over the area as he recited the traditional coronation lines from the ancient royal scrapbook, which had been handed down through the generations since the beginning of civilized troll kind. With the verbal part of the ritual complete, Poppy knelt down so King Peppy could place a green leafy crown atop her headband, then drape a teal, sparkling decorated cape over her shoulders. With both royals now standing and facing the awaiting audience, Peppy gently grasped his daughter's hand and lifted it up to the sky. His final announcement was loud and proud.
I give you our new leader, Queen Poppy!
The entire crowd instantly erupted into a massive applause, completely drowning out Branch's amateur attempts. But Poppy surveyed the group of trolls. Her gaze rested on him for a few seconds, and he knew she was able to see that he was contributing to the supportive cheers. The first few rounds of fireworks were set off, along with a few puffs of confetti, adding even more brilliant colours to the surrounding area. Poppy waited patiently for the enthusiastic clapping and shouting and chanting of her upgraded name to die down. It took a solid 2 minutes before the new queen was able to speak. I'd like to thank everyone so much. To be given this crown is such an incredible honour. I promise to do everything in my power to be a great queen, to assist each and every one of you in any way you need, to maintain the highest possible level of fun and happiness throughout every corner of the village, and to be someone you can look up to. I hope I can inspire all of you, just like you all inspire me. After another brief applause, plus some tears from the sappiest trolls, Poppy added, While I appreciate your wonderful praise and feedback, I will also welcome any constructive criticism you have. Please don't be afraid to make suggestions for improvement. I want to hear all your ideas, opinions, and concerns. I might be the troll in charge, but it's not about me. It's about us, the village. Being a good leader also means listening to and learning from others, and that's what I intend to do. Poppy glanced down at the front of the crowd and was pleased to see Branch smiling proudly up at her. She sincerely hoped he realized he was the one who taught her those important values. After another intense applause, trolls one by one bowed to their new queen, then gradually began to disperse, making their way over to the tables. Branch stayed where he was for the time being, still on the stage. He witnessed the former King Peppy gently grasp his daughter's hands, and overheard him say to her, You're running the show now, sweetheart. But that doesn't mean you should hesitate to come to me for advice or assistance. I'm retired,
not hibernating. I want you to take into consideration all the things I've taught you, and respect the traditions of our ancestors. However, I also want you to pave your own path, make your own mark, and trust your instincts.
After giving her father one final hug, Poppy scampered down the stage, somehow not stumbling over her fluffy dress or snagging her new cape, and over to her next target, Branch. Peppy looked down at the two of them with a warm smile as they settled happily in each other's arms. Poppy wanted to hold on to Branch for the rest of the evening, for the rest of forever, really, but she had responsibilities to attend to. I've got to go around and make sure everyone's settling in at their tables. I'll meet up with you sometime later, okay?
Of course. Take all the time you need to do whatever you need to do.
She smiled gratefully at him, that wide, beautiful smile. Thanks, Branch. After giving him a quick little peck on the cheek, the lively Pink Queen bounced away. No one would have noticed such a brief and subtle gesture. No one except, maybe, Branch glanced up at the stage to see King Peppy heading over to the stairs. If the king did notice the tiny kiss, he did not appear displeased. Branch brought his hand up to his cheek. Whenever her pink lips touched his skin, no matter how brief or light the contact was, it always made him feel like he was floating on the highest cloud. Meanwhile, Poppy weaved through the aisles of the tables. Some trolls were already seated. Some were about to be seated. Others remained standing. All of them continued to congratulate her. A small handful of trolls even made a few timid comments regarding new ideas for party activities and possible changes to village events. Poppy gladly accepted and considered each suggestion, and made notes of them in her to-do journal so that they could be discussed in more detail at a later time. After Poppy chatted with a group of glitter trolls, an unexpected voice sounded behind her. A smooth and accented voice.
Congratulations, Queen Poppy.
She spun around, mildly surprised. Oh, Creek! Hi, and thank you. She knew he had showed up to the party when she spotted his distinctive curled green-blue hair and freckled purple skin amongst the crowd before the ceremony. But considering how he remained among the crowd, she didn't expect him to directly approach her. Tentatively, unsure of how he may react, Poppy asked him, So, how are things going?
Things are going very well, thanks.
Creek's tone and expression were not bursting with friendliness, but they were not ice-cold either. Just very neutral.
I'm developing a new line of beaded necklaces, along with matching bracelets.
Yes, I've heard your new designs are becoming very popular. That's great news. Since the conversation was going smoothly, Poppy added, Is there anything I can do to help? Like with supplies or sales or anything?
Regardless of their past, despite his very questionable actions, Creek was a part of the village, and she was his queen. She couldn't and wouldn't exclude him. But Creek respectfully declined. Thank you for the offer, Queen Poppy. However, Sybil and I have created an effective system. Plus, Dr. Luluth has agreed to assist us in distributing them.
Oh, well, that's good to hear. Still, if there's any way I can ever help, please let me know. Creek bowed his head as a polite farewell, then left without another word. Poppy stood there for a moment, the civil exchange replaying in her mind. She felt a tiny spark of hope. There's still a chance he could come around. It may take time, but I believe Creek can and will learn from his mistakes. Anyone is capable of changing for the better. While waiting for dinner to be served, a massive game of Super Bingo was played. Since it was customary for the leaders and their family members to have their own table, Poppy was seated with her father at the royal round table up on the stage. Meanwhile, her close friends and Branch settled on one of the long rectangular tables, the one nearest to the right of the path, at the end nearest to the stage. Poppy wished she could be sitting with Branch, talking and laughing with him, instead of staring down at him from a distance. But she was content to abide by the tradition and patiently wait to be close to her beloved troll again. In the meantime, it was great to see him enjoying himself without her by his side. to watch him contentedly interact with a bunch of trolls right near the heart of the village. It didn't matter that Branch's colours were duller, and that he wasn't as loud as those around him. Everyone welcomed him as an equal, and he seemed to fit right in with a carefree group. He stayed for the entire game and the dinner without taking so much as a 5-minute break, and without any support, reassurance, or encouragement from her. Poppy's dad must have noticed where her gaze kept wandering to. As they finished their dinner, he pointed out,
"It's so nice to see Branch here. It's such a major celebration. He doesn't appear to be showing any signs of discomfort."
"I know, right? I was just thinking that," Poppy exclaimed. "He actually seems happy." I know it sounds cliché, but I am so proud of him and how far he's come.
"I agree. And I'm proud of you as well, sweetheart. You alone helped guide him to this point. You managed to rescue him from a life of despair, whereas many others, including myself, tried and failed. You showed outstanding leadership well before this coronation took place."
Poppy lowered her head, humbled by her father's sincere praise. "Thanks, Dad. And thanks to Branch, I've learnt how to be a good listener. I have more patience, and I know a bunch of important safety tips. I also understand the true value of happiness, and I see now that being open to different views will help us grow as individuals, and also connect with one another. All of that will help me become an even stronger leader." The retired king's smile widened under his moustache.
"I couldn't have said it better myself."
After a waitress came by to remove their dishes, Peppy said to his daughter,
"Why don't you invite him to come and have dessert up here with us?"
Poppy was rather surprised by that. "Really? Branch? Up here? With us?"
"Sure. It's not unheard of to have a special guest at the royal table. An older friend of mine I called Aunt Oakley was allowed to sit with us for my coronation meal."
Branch had just finished the final bite of his delicious dinner. It had taken some time for him to eat it, for 2 reasons. Firstly, it was a large portion, and secondly, he kept chatting with his companions, and as a result, he kept forgetting there was food in front of him. He was patiently waiting for the dessert menus to be handed out, when Poppy suddenly appeared beside him at his table. Her beautiful pink features, blue flowing dress, fancy cape and green crown. He glanced up at the stage only a minute ago, and she had been seated with King Peppy. Respectfully, Branch stood up, despite the others remaining seated. The other snack pack spoke to her as they always would, casually and with minimal altered manners. Still, Branch felt the need to greet her with,
"Good evening, Queen Poppy."
She chortled a bit, probably at his overly formal tone. "Good evening, Branch. Sorry to interrupt you guys," she said, glancing at the others, "but would you mind if I borrow Branch for a minute or two?" Biggie answered cheerfully,
"Nope, not at all." DJ Suki added with a quick wink, "He's all yours."
Curious now, Branch followed Poppy up a few steps away from the table. She cut right to the chase. "My dad asked me to invite you to join us for dessert."
Now Branch looked petrified. "Join you? Me?"
"Yeah, as our special guest. So, what do you say?"
Anxiety with a hint of dread washed over Branch. "What do I say?"
"Attending a party? Sure. Attending a coronation super party? Fine. But to sit at the table specifically designated for the royals only? That felt very improper, like he'd be committing a crime by accepting. Yet, how could he refuse? This was a very rare and generous invitation from the elderly former king and the newly named queen. Rebuffing such an offer would be extremely disrespectful. Branch almost tripped on his way up the stairs. His knees were shaking so badly.
"It's not like I'm approaching an illuminated stage to join the leaders in front of literally every troll in the village. Doing a faceplant before I even make it to the table, that wouldn't have been impressive. I may as well spill my entire drink all over myself while I'm at it. Or drop the..."
Branch hit the pause button on his pessimistic thoughts. He remembered Poppy's advice. If you only think about everything that could go wrong, something definitely will go wrong. So he collected himself as he stepped onto the stage.
I'm not barging in uninvited or begging to sit with them. King Peppy asked me to join them, so obviously it's all right for me to be here.
Branch risked a glance back at the crowd, and his stomach did a little somersault. Many eyes were staring up at the stage, clearly noticing the addition to the royal dining area. He scanned the trolls, searching for any glares, gaping jaws, or telltale whispering. But he didn't spot anything of the sort. Instead, they all appeared pleased, or nonchalant at worst. Feeling a bit more relieved, knowing that he wouldn't have a village-wide mob after him, Branch redirected his gaze to King Peppy. The magenta and silver-haired elder nodded respectfully at his guest.
Good evening, Branch. Glad you could join us tonight.
Thankfully, Branch's voice didn't betray his inner nerves.
Good evening, King Peppy. Thank you for the invitation.
He waved his orange hand a gesture towards the table.
Please, come, have a seat. Make yourself comfortable.
Poppy's smile widened as Branch sat in the extra chair beside her. This troll was so important to her. Truly one in a million. Smart and talented and funny and handsome and supportive and wonderfully unique. Not to mention sweeter than a whole bakery. She'd strived to connect with him since she was a trolling. Longed to be friends with him for so many years. And now they were even more than that. With a connection stronger than she'd ever had with anyone. He keeps me safe and happy and comforts me. His simple presence is like a big hug. And to have him be there with her and her dad during this enormous milestone in her life, it confirmed that he was already a part of her family. She was so delighted. Branch, however, did not seem as delighted. Most trolls wouldn't pick up on the subtle signs of nervousness that he was displaying, but they were obvious to her. He had been so relaxed during the entire party, and now he was on edge. Thinking back, Poppy could recall the exact moment his attitude changed, when she invited him to join her and her dad. She thought the reserved troll would be relieved to be away from the main crowd, to be with trolls he was most familiar with, so she couldn't imagine why this arrangement was bothering him. What am I missing? Is something else on his mind? One of the waitresses, a troll named Cookie with purple skin and light blue hair, made her way onto the stage, as King Peppy debated on which cake to order and discussed his options with Cookie. Poppy leaned towards Branch and whispered, "Hey, what's wrong?"
He whispered back, looking distraught, I don't know what to do."
Poppy blinked a few times. "That's not entirely helpful, Branchy." "What do you mean? Do with what?"
"I've never been in such a formal setting. What are the regulations? Is there a royal etiquette I need to follow? Should I speak first or wait to be spoken to? Is there a specific way to eat?"
In no way did Poppy intend to make light of his anxiety, but she had to let out a spurt of laughter slip. "What? No, not at all. We just wait for our food. We chat, we eat, we chat some more, same as any other table. Then when it hits 7, I head over to the dance floor, and then everyone else joins me, and we dance. Now that the official coronation ritual is over, everything will be pretty casual for the rest of the night. More like just a regular party now." She guessed Branch was afraid to make a big mistake or do something silly at such an important event. Even worse, do something wrong in front of her father or the village's king, who happened to be the same person, sitting right across the table, able to witness his every move. So, to put Branch at ease, Poppy placed a hand on his shoulder and added, "Just act how you normally would. If at any point there's a special something you're supposed to do, I'll let you know. Promise." Even though she knew he would never do what she was about to say, Poppy said it anyway to lighten his mood further. "As long as you don't start a food fight, there's really no way you can mess up here."
Branch gave her a funny look. "I thought spontaneous food fights were encouraged at parties."
"But not for such a significant royal milestone celebration. It's strictly forbidden, unless I choose to start one, or my dad starts it, but even that's very frowned on."
"Oh, well, in that case, I'll try to resist throwing my food around."
A spark of warmth flashed in his light blue eyes, signalling his contentedness was being restored. By then, Peppy had finally decided on which cake he wanted, so Cookie moved on.
What can I get you, Queen Poppy?
I think I'll go with one small slice of traditional Black Forest cake and one small slice of the ultra strawberry shortcake. Please and thank you.
Absolutely. And what for you, Branch? Carrot cake, please. A small slice that's light on the icing, if possible.
Sure can do. I'll be back with your orders in a few minutes. As Cookie departed the stage, Poppy turned to Branch. I didn't realise you liked carrot cake. Or are you just trying something different?
No, I've eaten it before. I was given a carrot cake as a thank you gift. It was very good.
After Peppy took a sip of his iced tea, he commented to Branch,
You must have done quite a good deed to earn an entire cake.
Branch humbly ducked his head.
Well, I suppose. I assisted with the reconstruction of the playground. The one that was damaged by a tree a couple of weeks ago. Ah, yes, I did notice your name on the builder's plaque. The very first name listed. I inspected the playground myself, and your contributions to the structure were highly impressive. Worthy of even more than a cake, I would say.
Branch's head lowered even more.
Thank you. I was given a card and some tools as well.
King Peppy nodded.
Good. I'm glad you received the payment you deserved.
He didn't just assist with the rebuild, Dad. He was in charge of it. And that's not all he's done. Branch would never brag about his accomplishments, so Poppy would do it for him. He fixed the plumbing issue in DJ Suki's pod. It was so bad that if Branch hadn't done something, the whole thing would have been destroyed. And there hasn't been a single problem since. It's as good as new. Then he played a part of a volleyball game with Tug Delulu's team was short a player, and helped Milton tend his nest of injured kittens. Also today, he helped set up the tables, the lights, the fireworks, and made a couple of wreaths.
Branch gave her a gaping side glance that he said, How the hell do you know all of that?
She shrugged matter-of-factly. One way or another, I find out about everything that happens. It's kinda literally my job to know what goes on in my village. After Branch tilted his head with a small nod of understanding, Poppy crossed her arms and smirked at him. Speaking of which, I don't recall you ever telling me about any of that stuff.
He shrugged slightly with a shy little smile. Sorry. I never thought to mention it, I guess.
Peppy praised.
That's quite a list of accomplishments, Branch. It appears you have become a very valuable member of this village.
Branch's heart squeezed at those words. He'd never been classified as even part of the village, let alone an important one. He was always the weed amongst the garden, the fish out of water, the one type of candy that nobody liked. Poppy always insisted that he had great potential, though he had never believed it himself, until she convinced him to try, convinced him to believe. Only then Branch opened his doors, metaphorically and literally, let go of his stubborn negativity, and allowed happiness into his life. The happiness he never thought he could experience. Now, Branch's entire life was different. His personality, his actions, his thoughts, feelings, daily activities, even his wardrobe and diet. It was like he was a whole new troll, and many others, including the former king, recognized this too. They saw the person he was becoming, not the person he used to be. Branch had never wanted to be a part of the village. Now, he couldn't imagine ever wanting anything else. His voice shook with gratitude.
Thank you, King Peppy.
For the next few minutes until their desserts arrived, the two royals and their guests exchanged a positive conversation about Branch's new purple outfit. Cookie served Peppy first, then Poppy, then made her way over to Branch. And for you, one small slice of carrot cake with light icing. Branch looked down at the cake placed in front of him. It was quite bulky for a small slice, and was still topped with a very thick layer of icing, though compared to most cakes he supposed it was a less than average amount. Either way, he kept any sarcastic comments to himself.
Thank you.
Once Cookie exited to the stage, Branch began to scrape off the excess icing with his knife. Poppy giggled at him. Still too much? He smirked at her.
Just a tad.
Well, if you're not going to eat that, I'll take it. Branch glanced over at her 2 cake slices. Each of them already had twice as much icing as his.
There was almost more icing than cake.
He was about to say,
"I think you already have enough,"
but he knew exactly what her answer would be. Enough is never enough when it comes to icing. Instead, he handed her the knife.
"Knock yourself out."
As long as it wasn't on his own cake, he really didn't care where it was. Once she successfully transferred the icing, Branch took the first bite of his modified carrot cake. Much better. Exactly the right amount of sweetness. After a few bites, Poppy insisted, "Try some of mine. Just a bit of each?"
"All right, sure."
So she slid the plate with the Black Forest cake in front of him. He cut off a small chunk with his fork, avoiding the bulk of the icing.
Not bad. Not bad at all."
"Have some more if you'd like."
But Branch politely declined. "No thanks, Poppy. If I eat too much of this, I doubt I'll be able to finish my own."
"Alrighty, on to the next one then." The bubbly pink troll pulled the Black Forest cake back toward her, then grabbed the other plate. But instead of moving it into his reach, she put a bit of the strawberry shortcake on her own fork, then held it out towards him. Branch reached out to grab the fork, but Poppy abruptly pulled it away from his approaching hand. He looked at her questioningly. She held up the fork again, pointedly in front of his face, and this time with a very purposeful stare. With a muffled sigh, he clued into what she wanted. He automatically glanced over at Peppy, who was busy scraping a blob of icing off his plate and wasn't paying attention to anything else. So, with a mixture of fond exasperation and embarrassment, Branch gave in. He reluctantly opened his mouth and allowed Poppy to feed him. Yes, it was cringy, but it was no worse than when she had to clean icing off his nose at his picnic. His awkwardness was quickly forgotten as he tasted the cake. The very sugary, rich, sugary cake! His varying facial expressions must have been ridiculous because Poppy burst into laughter, which alerted Peppy, and even he started chuckling. Branch was really trying to maintain a somewhat dignified and keep his disgust to a minimum, but this cake was really sweet. What? Poppy was still cackling. What kind of face is that? Branch could barely speak, the unbearably strong flavour lingering even after a drink of water.
"The face of way too sweet."
"Maybe it's not the cake. Maybe it's you that's way too sweet."
Branch snorted at Poppy's wisecrack.
Only she could make such a cheesy pun sound adorable.
"Ha ha, good one, Poppy, but I'm fairly certain it's the cake."
A minute later, it was Branch who was amused by Poppy as she accidentally knocked her glass, but she managed to catch it and stabilise it, but not without half her drink spilling out onto the table. In addition, during the process, she somehow managed to get a smear of icing halfway up her forearm. Peppy was chuckling and shaking his head too.
"Poppy, dear, you have the beauty of an angel, but you are as clumsy as a fuzzbumble."
With all three laughing together at the Queen's blunder, Branch's misgivings of making a fool of himself were long forgotten. Even if he did make a mistake, it wouldn't be the end of the world. Everyone makes mistakes, even the Queen. He could handle some mild embarrassment if it happened. His ability to deal with his emotions had greatly improved, and he was learning to focus on the brighter side of unideal situations. As Branch finished the last bite of his carrot cake, Cookie returned to clear away all the dishes. Though Poppy hadn't said anything, he thought it would be impolite to get out of his chair first, so he waited until both she and Peppy were on their feet. Once Branch was standing, Poppy gave him one instruction. "So, in a few minutes, when DJ and CJ switch the music, I'm going to head back down the path and over to the dance table. Once I'm standing in the centre and I give the signal, you're free to come to join me, or go take a break, or go wherever you want." In less than 10 minutes, Poppy was standing in place, a tiny bright pink and blue dot in the middle of a vast empty dance area. However, it was not empty for long. She turned her face to the crowd and announced in an overpowering voice, "Let's get this party started!" And within half a minute, the new queen disappeared amongst the swarm of exhilarated trolls. The music's volume greatly increased, and in a single motion, all the colourful bodies became a fast-paced dancing rainbow. Branch decided to return to the snack pack, who were one of the several groups who hadn't rushed over to the dance floor. Before he even reached their table, they surrounded him faster than he could blink. "Wow, you got to sit at the royal table!" was Biggie's enthusiastic greeting. "What an honour!" Chenille exclaimed. "Good thing we made you a new outfit." Satin added,
"None of us have ever been invited up there."
Smidge sounded envious, but her shining blue eyes showed her true emotion. She was impressed. DJ Suki had taken a break from the music, leaving her niece and an assistant in charge. She joined the group as they were praising Branch. She was now standing right beside Guy, and gave the glitter troll a wicked grin. He crossed his arms over his silver chest with his head held high.
"So what? I've still got this."
Biggie, Cooper, Satin and Chenille smiled while nodding at them.
Smidge shrugged. "Well, looks like it's down to you two. I'm already out for sure. I admit defeat."
"It's obviously going to be me. You're out of time, DJ," Guy insisted. As his words sunk in, Suki's grin suddenly lost some of its confidence. Meanwhile, Branch's blank gaze darted back and forth, searching for any clue that could offer some clarification to this odd conversation. He found nothing, so he raised an eyebrow.
What?"
Suki quickly answered, Nothing, just an inside joke we've got going on."
"Okay."
Branch got the feeling that it'd be best to stay out of whatever the hell his crazy friends were up to. Switching the comment, the gang decided it was time to go over to the dance floor before they miss out on all the fun. All eyes turned to Branch, and Cooper asked, "You coming?"
"Not right away. I'm going to get some fresh air. But I'll catch up with you guys later."
Cooper appeared confused for a few seconds, but then a giant grin spread across his pink face. "Cool! Later, Branch!" The four-legged troll scurried away, with the others following and offering their own goodbyes. As Branch turned to head towards the forest, he thought he spotted Krieg out of the corner of his eye, up on the stage. But when he took a second look, no one was there. He could have sworn he'd seen the distinctive purple skin, green-blue hair, and yellow pants. Branch shrugged it off.
"Good. I don't want to see his smug face anyway."
After a nice lone stroll away from the party, Branch ended up taking a seat on a fallen log. He could still hear the music in the distance. Its volume was cranked up to full blast. It was still too loud for his liking, but he no longer feared that all this noise would attract the Bergens.
Those monsters would hear it, find the village, and capture everyone. No. This forest was safe. The village was safe. The Bergens were no longer a threat to Trollkind. All the horror of them taking loved ones away was history. Branch would forever remember and be affected by his tragic childhood. But the memory of it didn't need to control his present life. He couldn't change his past, but he could choose to move forward and have a brighter future. There was a pause, and then the music shifted to a new song. Branch's ears perked up a bit. The tune was familiar, an upbeat song from when he was a trolling. He forgot the title and the artist, but as the chorus started to play, he realised he still recognised some of the lines. He closed his eyes with a smile, content to just sit there and listen to this nice song. But Branch's smile began to droop partway through the song. Something felt off, but not in a bad way. He could feel his foot moving, and was surprised to discover it was bobbing along to the rhythm of the music. Instantly he ceased the motion, staring down at his pale turquoise foot in confusion, as if wondering what had possessed him. Meanwhile, the chorus picked up again, its pleasant melody entering his ears. Subconsciously, that foot started again, a light up-down motion. This time, Branch allowed it to continue. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed this one. Oh, I love it. Poppy's coronation. Good on you, girl. I appreciate that. And also, how cute is this? Oh my god. Poppy feeding him cake and then having him have a funny reaction. Oh my lord, I'm shivering it so hard. And just, oh, he's grown so much.
And believe me, I can relate. I've been to a few situations like this. Big family or fancy events, and you just need to take a minute. Because frankly, I'm an ambivert. I need to save up energy in my introversion in order to have the energy to be extroverted. Anyway, yeah, so I can relate. You guys know the drill. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell to get notified when I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.